Whisper this at midnight. Unlock wealth, joy, and wellness, the secret decrees no one talks about. In the small, sleepy town of Millhaven, something extraordinary stirred at the stroke of midnight. A hushed breeze skimmed the streets, carrying with it whispers of an ancient decree, one that promised unimaginable wealth and joy to those daring enough to believe. It was said that if you spoke these words at the witching hour, the universe itself would reshape your destiny. The words felt electric on the tongue, a potent mix of hope and danger that kept townsfolk awake at night, eyes wide with wonder and fear. Old Mrs. Henderson claimed that the last person to utter the decree unlocked a hidden fortune buried under the old oak tree, while some teenagers swore they heard ghostly laughter echo through their dreams after trying it. They couldn't quite shake the feeling that something was watching, something that thrived on their whispers. Streets were lined with shadows, and the flickering street lamps seemed to listen, their light dimming whenever someone tried to summon the courage to speak aloud the allure of the secret. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, an electric hum filled the air, vibrating through every living being. Excitement mixed with dread wrapped around them like a thick fog. Curiosity burned brighter than the strained smiles, but with that flame came the fear of what might awaken. What if the reward wasn't all it cracked up to be? What if, in seeking the keys to joy and wealth, they stumbled into something dark and twisted? The crowd gathered beneath the watchful eye of the moon, holding their breath, ready to recite the secret words. A shiver of anticipation raced through them. Would they be the next to unlock the hidden truths? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment drew closer. Voices trembled on the edge of silence as hearts raced in unison. The townsfolk could almost hear the universe holding its breath with them. What if this was the moment everything changed? But then, without warning, a deafening crack like thunder split the air. The ground shook beneath their feet. Gasps turned to screams. Light flickered and shadows darted. Was it the call of fortune or a warning? In that split second of chaos, one question remained. Were they ready for the truth, whatever it might bring? As the dust settled, the moon flickered ominously, leaving them on the precipice of discovery, hearts pounding in uncertainty, teetering between hope and terror. But just as the murmurs of the townsfolk began to fade, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, cloaked presence that seemed stitched from the night itself. The air thickened with tension and gasps cut through the chaos as it stepped forward, the moonlight glinting off a hollow smile that danced on the figure's lips. Fools! The figure bellowed, voice deep and resonating like the toll of a church bell. You wish to awaken a force that even the bravest dare not conjure. Do you know what comes with such power? The crowd shifted uneasily, a ripple of fear passing through them, but the lure of the treasure whispered louder, keeping them on edge. What do you know of our desire? A brave soul shouted, stepping forward. It was Ethan, the high school quarterback, known for his bravado yet overshadowed by something more than just high school drama. We seek not just riches but freedom, joy, a life beyond this mundane existence. The cloaked figure chuckled softly, a sound that sent shivers down spines. You think you want what I can offer, but every wish comes at a cost, and many who sought wealth instead found despair. With a wave of a hand, the figure summoned a gust of wind that tangled with the air, heavy with anticipation. Above them, the stars flickered one by one, dimming, as though just the act of debating the decree pulled energy from the universe itself. Whispers erupted anew, but now they were laced with anxiety. Had they gone too far? Was their desire going to summon more than just fortune? Just as panic threatened to devour the group, the figure extended a long finger towards the old oak tree, its twisted branches reaching skyward like skeletal hands. Speak the words if you dare. But remember, the figure leaned in closer, its breath cold and ghostly. You may inadvertently awaken something far darker than your ambitions. Ethan's heart raced. This was the moment. The others watched him, eyes wide and pleading, searching for courage he barely felt. And at that moment the clock struck midnight, every chime echoing through the air like an ominous heartbeat. The chant burst forth, a flood of voices overwhelmed by the urgency to break free from their constraints. "Whisper this at midnight," they cried, the words spilling into the night. With each syllable, the ground beneath them trembled again. But this time it wasn't just the ominous energy of the cloaked figure. It felt alive, shifting, like the pulse of the town itself responding to their call. Cracks splintered in the pavement. A strange light enveloped the oak, illuminating hidden symbols etched into its bark, centuries-old secrets coming alive. Then came the first sound from the earth, a low rumble, followed by guttural growls that echoed through the air. The townsfolk's faces shifted from exhilaration to pure dread as a shadowy form erupted from the ground, towering with an aura of ancient heaviness. They had awakened something that should have remained buried. The cloaked figure simply smiled, watching from the sidelines. "A price has been paid. A truth unveiled, but at what cost?" it whispered as the crowd staggered backward in horror. Ethan stood frozen, mind racing. The woods held whispers of wealth, but also so many secrets long lost to time. What if the treasure was not just gold but something darker? A truth that might swallow them whole? The ground shuddered, and in that moment, every pair of eyes turned toward the chaos they had unleashed, a terrifying reminder that some doors shouldn't be opened. All the while, a voice beckoned in the distance, taunting them with an unsettling promise as the figure before them loomed, its shadow swallowing what was left of their hopes. One question lingered in the crisp night air: what would they do now that they had stirred the dark heart of Millhaven? The answer was just on the tip of their tongues, and it would determine everything. The ground heaved violently, and Ethan felt the earth tremble beneath his feet. The shadowy form that rose from the soil was no longer a mere illusion. It loomed before them, massive and dark, a manifestation of their reckless ambition. The eyes, or what appeared to be eyes, glowed with a wretched hunger, fixed on the crowd shifting backward in terror. "What have we done?" a girl shrieked, her voice cracking through the air, piercing the thick fog of dread that had settled over them. Panic washed over the gathering like a wave, sending them scattering in different directions, but not one of them could tear their gaze away from the impending doom hovering above the town square. As the figure rose, the air thickened with anticipation, its form shifting and coiling like smoke. Ethan felt an icy grip of despair in his chest. Just moments ago they had dared to dream, to wish for freedom and joy. Yet now those dreams were morphing into something grotesque, suffocating. "Fools!" the cloaked figure echoed once more, a sardonic edge tinging its voice. It stepped back, darker than the night, allowing the chaos to unfold. The crowd was a tapestry of fear-stricken faces, all painted in shades of horror. They were powerless, swept up in the wake of their own recklessness. "Leave us be!" Ethan shouted, the roar of desperation rising from him, but it was futile. The shadow only took a step forward, and the ground crackled. "Despair! You've called it upon yourselves," the ominous voice rumbled, echoing in the dark like thunder. "Wish for wealth, and you shall find emptiness. Yearn for joy, only to uncover sorrow." Then with a wicked twist, the shadow loomed closer. Ethan's heart raced violently. It was feeding off their fear, their regret. He could sense the deep-rooted despair that it craved, the parched thirst lurking beneath its shadowy skin. It was the very nightmare they had inadvertently unleashed. Just then, in that tumultuous panic, Ethan caught sight of the cloaked figure. It remained standing, unmoved, observing their suffering with a wicked satisfaction. He clenched his fists, anger sparking against his fear. "What are you?" he yelled, voice trembling. "Merely a guide to truths timeless and ancient," it replied, a hint of amusement lacing its tone. "But dear townsfolk, I wield neither treasure nor release. Only the echoes of your desires and the shadows of your choices." The creature before them shrieked, emitting a sound that harmonized with the growing chaos, the sound of the very raw fears of the townsfolk, manifested and cacophonous. The shadows twisted, morphing into nightmarish visages of those who once claimed too much, taken too far in their quest for more. Ethan's chest tightened as he remembered the stories passed down about lost souls, those who wandered the woods seeking riches and in turn, lost everything. Was this the price? Were they destined to join the ranks of the forsaken? Disorientation surged through the crowd, their bravado crumbling under the weight of reality. Everyone made for the edges of the square, stumbling and shoving, as if the hidden danger was crawling into their minds, clawing at their sanity. Stay together. We can't let it separate us. Ethan shouted, but even he could feel the chilling fear pulling him away from his friends. The power of the shadow grew stronger with their division. It thrived on their disarray, but then through the midst of the chaos, came a glimmer of hope, a chant, a soft echo weaving its way back to them. Someone dared to defy their primal fears, whispering a counter-incantation deeper than treasures or fleeting desires. It surged with a power innate to the land itself. Ethan turned sharply toward the source, determined eyes meeting his. Now he understood what had been unleashed could be unmade, perhaps. But at what cost? Together. He cried out as the ground quivered again, both in agreement and in a warning. We can end this. Still doubts gnawed at him. Would they have the strength? Or had they already crossed a threshold from which there was no return? As the shadow writhed and twirled around them, the air thick with a foreboding promise, one last question pulsed through Ethan's mind: would they be brave enough to confront the darkness they had unleashed, or would they succumb to their own deepest fears? The answer loomed ahead, and just as he felt determination sharpening within him, the shadow lunged. Ethan felt the rush of energy as the shadow lunged. It came at him like a freight train, darkness swallowing everything in its path. Time slowed, stretching out like moments crammed between the beats of his racing heart, pounding in his ears. Now, a voice shouted, breaking through the chaos. It was Clara, standing firm amidst the terror, her hands raised high, stirring the air with fierce determination. The chant poured from her lips, words laden with power, an ancient rhythm resonating with the very earth beneath them. Ethan felt the pull of something greater. The chant, alive and pulsing, seemed to weave around him, tugging at his very soul. It was the reminder of who they were. Their roots in the earth, strength and unity. Together. He cried again, his voice mingling with Clara's, feeling the connection surge as the townsfolk hesitated, glancing at one another, searching for the strength to stand firm. But the shadow wasn't going to wait. It lunged, a mass of swirling darkness, arms stretching long like death, reaching for life. The crowd screamed, a collective wail that pierced the night. Then came the light. A flicker at first, just a shimmer at Clara's fingertips. She focused, her voice rising over the torrent of fear. We stand against you. The shadow recoiled, hissing a sound that slithered into their ears, chilling their bones. It wasn't he just reacting to the chant. It was afraid, and that realization carved a path through the fear. They could fight this. Words spilled from Ethan too, unbidden and raw. We don't want what you offer. We want to be free of the chains you forged. The shadow faltered, shimmering as if struggling to maintain its form. Muffled whispers erupted from the crowd, joined by rising voices that collectively fought back against despair. Together. Stronger together. They chanted, echoing through the square. Each syllable wove tighter, binding them all. It felt like the very fabric of their town was pulsing, resonating with life again. But just then the atmosphere shifted, the shadow twisted violently, morphing into grotesque images of past ambitions turned dark. Ethan's throat constricted as he caught a glimpse of his own greed, manifested in shadows like monstrous puppets. Was this their future? Were they to succumb to their own flaws, to the very darkness they sought to fight? Doubt won't save you. Only despair. The dark figure boomed back, its voice now a cyclone, spiraling around them, thrumming with venomous energy. Ethan struggled for breath, heart racing. His friends were still chanting, but their voices were growing fainter beneath the shadow's wrath. That doubt inside him clawed at his resolve. He couldn't let it win. Panic surged again, thick and suffocating, as the darkness coiled closer. Ethan felt the urge to flee, to protect himself. But somewhere deep inside he felt the flicker of hope coming from Clara, igniting fuel to fight. He need to let the flame spread. Think of the light. He yelled over the chaos. Think of what we could be. With those words the ground beneath them trembled again, responding to their collective conviction. Suddenly, with a furious roar, the shadow lunged one last time. Ethan instinctively raised his arm, the energy swirling around him igniting as if the very earth whispered its support. And just then, an explosive burst of light erupted from Clara's hands, illuminating the square like the rising sun. It was so bright, it swallowed the darkness whole. But in that blinding glow the shadow screeched, its form disintegrating into wisps as wrestled with the brightness. And just when Ethan thought they had won, he saw it, a glint, sharp and dark, hiding in the shadows, swirling away, almost reclaiming its form. Something was left behind. What was that? He gasped, chest heaving. But the light was fading, and with it, the shadows began to reweave themselves, stronger, darker, angrier than before. The crowd's determination wavered, palpable fear creeping back like smoke. "Do you think you've won?" the ominous voice echoed, chilling them to the core. "What was cast aside, I will reclaim. You have only postponed your reckoning." Ethan's breath caught as the darkness surged again, more vicious than ever. The question hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. Could they truly extinguish the darkness, or had they merely lit the fire for what was to come? Time pressed on, suffocating. The battle was far from over. A reckoning awaited them, lurking just out of sight. And it was hungry. Ethan's heart raced as he staggered back, the pulse of fear choking him. The fading light painted the square in ghostly hues, stretching shadows taut and twisting them into nightmarish shapes. The townsfolk murmured, their voices low as doubt flooded their minds like a high tide swallowing the shore. "Ethan?" Clara's voice emerged from the haze, her eyes wide but fierce. "We can't stop. We have to keep pushing." Despite the terror clawing at him, Ethan nodded. He felt Clara's strength tether him, grounding him in the chaos. "Together," he shouted again, his voice fragile yet defiant. "We can't let it." Before he finished, the air around them thickened, a tangible wall of dread that pressed into their chests. The shadows writhed, a dark ocean rising to consume them, and those horrid whispers slithered back into their minds. Each word dripped with despair, reminding them of failures, regrets, and moments wrested by shadows of their own making. Ethan gritted his teeth as his own past loomed like a specter in front of him, promises broken and dreams unraveling. "No," he roared, forcing the thoughts back. "That's not who we are. We're fighting this together." Clara raised her hands again, and a flicker of light sparked between her fingers, a fragile connection, glowing defiantly against the dark. "You're right. We have to bind our strength. Trust in each other." The crowd, still trembling, began to murmur again, hesitantly at first. But as curiosity flickered alongside fear, voices started to rise, chanting their united will. Together. Stronger together. Yet the shadows reacted violently, shrieking as if they were alive. "You think your unity means anything?" it howled. "You will drown in your own despair. I am your failure. I am your guilt." Ethan felt the weight of its words pressing down like a shroud, but he fought against it, pulling at the threads of light that Clara wove around them. "No, we define ourselves, not the dark." With every ounce of resolve he had, he focused on the burgeoning light, letting the warmth fill him. Clara turned toward him, her eyes glimmering with a fierce intensity at the flame they ignited together. "We are the light they can never snuff out." The ground beneath them shook violently, like the wrath of the earth itself, but they held fast, bolstered by each other's belief. Whatever darkness sought to claim them, they would not yield. Then from behind, dread washed over the crowd as a figure stumbled into view, lesser than before but unmistakably there. The creature, embers of smoke curling from its being. "You think you've cast me aside? I shall consume the hope you cherish. I shall grow stronger with every flicker of your light. Don't listen to it." Clara shouted, her voice cracking like thunder. "We won't let it in. Remember their faces, our families, our friends. Fight for them." Ethan pumped his fists, rallying the crowd. "For the people we love. For the lives we dream." Each voice added to the rhythm of resistance, growing louder, bolder, transcending fear. But even as hope surged, the shadows coiled tighter. The air shimmered with treachery, and layers of darkness still clung to the edges, eager to snuff out the flicker of light they fought for. Ethan could feel the drain on his energy, the emotions swirling like a storm within him. The dark figure lurched forward, narrowly closing the distance, a fractured mirror of their collective fears. "The reckoning has only begun," it shouted. "I will consume you all." And just as the shadows threatened to engulf them, a glimmer caught Ethan's eye, the glint from earlier, bright and persistent, pulsing like the heartbeat of the earth. Something had been left behind, a promise of power forgotten in the chaos. "What is it?" he gasped, eyes locked onto the shimmering form, his pulse quickening. It had to be their salvation. "Ethan!" Clara cried as the shadows surged with renewed fury. We have to unite our strength now. Whatever that is, we need it to fight. But with each passing second, the darkness pressed in tighter, promising to snuff out their light momentarily. The question blared in Ethan's mind, drowning out the chant. Could they grasp the object of hope before the shadows twisted them into despair? Time was running out. The chaos around him erupted as the dark figure lunged closer. Ethan felt the air thicken, a venomous fog wrapping around him, dimming the light that Clara had sparked. Panic surged in his chest. The shimmering glint pulsed, urging him to move, to act. "Clara!" he shouted, keeping his eyes locked on the bright form. "Stay with me. I'm going for it." In the midst of the swirling darkness, Ethan sprinted, feet pounding against the cracked ground. He could hear Clara's voice cutting through the noise, rallying the crowd, urging them to focus and fight. "Ethan, don't look back. We will follow you." He could feel the shadows clawing at him, scratching against his skin, whispering his worst fears in a chorus of despair. Each step felt like running through molasses, but he pushed through, driven by the flickering light that beckoned him. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, guiding him, whispering secrets he couldn't quite catch. As Ethan reached the glimmering form, his breath caught in his throat. It was a small stone, radiant and warm like fire wrapped in glass. He barely hesitated before snatching it into his palm, feeling an electric surge course through him. The moment he clasped the stone, a surge of energy erupted, shooting through his veins like wildfire. It wasn't just the light. It was hope conditioned with strength. He turned to face the encroaching shadows, holding the stone high like a beacon. "We have the light." Clara, alongside the crowd, rallied around him, bolstered by his act. The whispers began to retreat, as though wary of the power they felt radiating from Ethan's hand. "Keep it together," he shouted, the stone glowing brighter with every word, every heartbeat. "We are not the shadows. We are the light." The crowd united, chanting louder, their voices soaring together. "Light! Hope! Together!" The shadows recoiled, thrashing violently, screeching in their agony. The air trembled, thick with the scent of fear and courage mingling together. But the dark figure was unfazed. It twisted with a rage that sent shockwaves through the ground. "Fools! You think that trinket can hold back the abyss?" It seethed, lunging again, determined to extinguish their small glimmer of hope. Ethan clenched the stone tighter and felt its warmth seep into his bones. "We can do this!" he yelled. "All of us! Together!" A wave of light exploded from the stone, enveloping the crowd, their interconnected flames igniting a furious blaze that illuminated the square. The brightness pushed back the shadows, forcing them to yield. Gasps erupted from the townsfolk, their spirits igniting in tandem with the light. Then, as the shadows writhed, Ethan caught the flicker of something in the distance, something darker, more sinister lurking at the edges of their sanctuary. A realization flashed through him. The dark figure wasn't he alone. "Clara!" he gasped, his heart dropping. There's more were not finished yet. A collective hush fell over the crowd as they realized too. The screams churned the air again, manifesting into figures twisting in the dark, a battalion of shadows, emerging from behind the veil, each one a reflection of their fears, their regrets, riled and ready to consume. "What do we do?" someone cried, eyes wide in panic. Ethan's thoughts raced like wildfire. He couldn't just defend their light. They needed to attack. "We take back what was stolen from us. We take our courage and face them together. Are you with me?" In that moment, all eyes locked onto him, uncertainty mixed with resolve. "Together!" Clara shouted again, raising her arms, urging the crowd. The shadows closed in, but this time, instead of retreating, Ethan felt the stone pulse in his hand, urging him forward. It was time to confront the darkness standing in the way of their victory. "What if we're stronger than they think?" he murmured, barely loud enough for Clara to hear. The darkness lunged, and with it came everything he had ever feared. Ethan's heart pounded against the stone's fevered glow. Was he truly brave enough to step into the abyss and pull everyone back into the light? The battle had only just begun. Ethan's heart raced like a wild stallion, galloping furiously through a landscape of nightmares. As shadows surged towards him, dark forms twisted and morphed, beasts birthed from anxiety and despair. The air grew colder, suffocating him with an overwhelming weight. Yet the stone burned hot in his palm, a constant reminder of the hope that still flickered within them. "Fight!" he roared, his voice almost swallowed by the cacophony of swirling shadows. His shout was swallowed, but it sparked something raw in the crowd. They absorbed his words. They drew courage from the light. Clara stood beside him, her face resolute yet terrified. "We won't let them win. Keep pushing forward." She raised her arms again, channeling the growing energy from the stone, beckoning others to join her as the masses surged forward in a wave of light and determination. The shadows recoiled but regained their footing, eager to feast on their fear. Ethan could feel the dread emanating from the faces of those around him. He had to fight that feeling, the doubts that threatened to envelop them like fog. Suddenly, a shadow lunged, snapping inches away from Ethan's face. He ducked instinctively, adrenaline pumping through him like a powerful drug. "Together!" he bellowed again, reaching toward the darkness. The glowing stone pulsed, and for a split second, he felt a deeper connection, a bridge formed between their collective courage and the abyss. The shadows grew restless, swirling like a vicious storm. Ethan raised the stone higher, its luminescence casting eerie silhouettes around them. "You are mine," he declared, embodying every fear he had ever faced. "I won't let you claim us." But the dark figure loomed larger now, rage and malice defined its features. "You think you're bringing the dawn? You forgot that the night is eternal," it sneered, voice a sinister caress. "Don't listen," Clara shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. "It wants you to give in." Ethan felt her strength seep into him. He tightened his grip on the stone and steadied himself. "If it's eternal, we'll burn brighter," he shouted, sending a wave of radiant energy cascading through the crowd. With each heartbeat, the fire within them grew, igniting a furious blaze that licked at the shadows trying to encircle them. The light seared through darkness, but the shadows fought back, growing desperate in their attempts to snuff out the glow. Suddenly, from behind the lines of darkness, Ethan saw it, not just more shadows, but figures he recognized. Faces of old friends, family, even lost loved ones, twisted and warped by their own regrets. The heart-wrenching hallucinations sent icy tendrils creeping through his resolve. "Ethan!" a voice cried, a familiar wail that made him falter. "Why did you leave us?" His breath hitched, choking on the pang of despair. He shook his head, forcing the surge of emotional weight away. "You're not real," he shouted, voice raw. "You're just shadows of doubt." He wouldn't succumb. He wouldn't be trapped in the mind's prison. "We can face this," Ethan yelled to the crowd, his spirit reignited by Clara's fierce resolve. "Whatever you see, it's not who you truly are. Show them. Show the world." Light surged from the stone, a burning inferno that shot through the air. The crowd echoed his words, their voices harmonizing into a crescendo that shattered the sorrowful whispers. But just as they began to push forward, the darkness recoiled, then charged, a living wall of anguish and contempt, a last desperate attempt to snuff out their light. "Don't falter now," Clara's voice rang clear. Then in the chaos, the dim outline of a much darker shadow emerged, the commander of this madness, the source, hovering just beyond the retreating front, and it felt deliberate. "Are you ready for your reckoning?" it called, an echoing promise of despair laced with foreboding madness. Even with the light encircling them, Ethan felt the heat of the impending conflict. He had to build their strength one last time. "Fight! Fight for every doubt that has tied us down. Fight for every dream that flickered away." As his heart thundered in his chest, blanketing the fear in the light, he realized that everything hinged on this moment, the phoenix or the ash. What new horrors lurked in the grasp of that towering shadow? What awaited them, shrouded in darkness? The true battle was yet to unfold. Ethan could feel the pulse of collective fear thrumming through the crowd as the shadows closed in. He fought against the tide, every fiber of his being channeling defiance into the stone, feeling its energy surge through him like wildfire. "We're stronger together," he cried, but doubt gnawed at his insides. Could they hold back the flood? "Stay close." Clara's voice pierced through the murky air, a beacon of resolve. They pushed forward, pushing against the wall of shadow that loomed before them. Every step forward seemed monumental, their breaths ragged, voices trembling with effort as they battled through the growing darkness. But the creature above its eyes flickered with a sickly gleam. "You think you can resist forever?" it taunted, its voice curling around them like smoke. You carry your burdens like stones. They weigh you down. Let go, embrace the night. Ethan's heart dropped at its words. He could see the doubt mirrored in the expressions of those around him, faces paling, bodies trembling. He needed to remind everyone to remind himself why they were fighting. Remember why we're here. He shouted, desperation fueling his voice. Fight for our lives. Fight for the light. As if responding to his call, the stone flared brightly. People around him leaned into it, their apprehensions washing away like sand beneath a tide. Clara took a deep breath, her hands weaving an intricate pattern in the air, summoning more energy from the stone. Together, their collective hope became a barrier against despair. The shadows writhed, hungry and relentless. They lunged again, snapping like wolves eager for prey. One of the dark figures, a grotesque mimicry of a beloved friend, lunged at Ethan, its eyes hollow and accusing. You abandoned us. It hissed, voice dripping with sorrow. Ethan staggered, pain twisting his stomach. He clenched his fists. No, you're not real. He roared, thrusting the stone forward. A blinding light surged, fending off the gnarled form momentarily. But it was just the beginning. From the depths of darkness, silhouettes unraveled, each wearing familiar masks, faces etched in anguish and regret. Each figure demanded his attention, drawing at the fraying threads of his heart, whispering shattered promises, heart-wrenching losses. They were fears, memories twisted into taunts. Ethan, remember the last time? Another voice called, softer now. You let us down when we needed you the most. Ethan's chest tightened with the weight of ghosts, regret clawing at his mind. No. He shouted, shaking his head violently, as if to dislodge the memories. You are my past, not my future. He glanced at Clara, her eyes ablaze with conviction. We can't submit to them. We must stand our ground. She joined him, raising her arms high, urging their friends to follow. The crowd began to chant, voices rising like a great tide. We are not shadows. We are light. The stone in Ethan's palm ignited, pouring forth an ethereal glow that cast a wide circle around them. The dark figure, they could almost see its twisted smile falter, confusion rippling through its form. This cannot be, it hissed. Ethan felt a surge of hope as the light began to push the shadows back. But just as they felt they could break free, the dark commander moved with shocking speed, expanding, morphing, engulfing objects and people around. The chaos grew. The darkness intensified, pressing unbearably close. On a heartbeat, it struck. A smoky tendril lashed out, wrapping around Clara's ankle, a swift flick of intention that froze all movement. Clara! He yelled, his voice raw as panic seized him. The light flickered unsteadily, threatened by encroaching darkness. Let her go. He charged forward, tearing through the panic. Instinct and desperation propelled him. But what would it cost him? With the stone pulsing like a heartbeat, Ethan gritted his teeth. If he didn't act swiftly, the shadows swirled tighter, and surrender loomed just beyond their reach. It was a moment to take action, to unravel the darkness that kept chasing them. As the darkness loomed, would Ethan risk everything for the light? Would he reach for the hope that flickered within them one more time? Or would he find himself lost in the abyss? The answer lay in the very next breath. Ethan's heart hammered like a war drum. He lunged forward, the swirling shadows pulsating around him, their malevolence alive in the air. I want to let you take her, he screamed, every word filled with raw terror and defiance. He could feel Clara's panic through the tether of their connection, a pulsing ache wrapping around his chest. The tendril tightened its hold and Clara gasped, her face contorting in fear. The light from the stone flickered as if sensing its power draining. Fight it, he shouted, willing her strength to push through the suffocating darkness. But the shadows only laughed, bitter and cruel, as more tendrils erupted from the abyss, snaking through the crowd. Ethan dashed closer, heart racing, desperate to cut through the haze of despair. Clara, grab onto the light, he urged, feeling the fierce warmth of the stone. We're not alone. She nodded, fighting against the constriction. Her hands lifted slowly, trembling but focused, reaching out for the flickering light. It danced above them, a beacon amid the chaos. The crowd's chants grew louder, their voices mingling into a unified roar, pushing against the shadows. The darkness writhed and recoiled, but there was no retreat, only a horrifying advance. Ethan dug deep into his memory, drawing upon every moment of strength, every flicker of joy. His own shadows loomed large, but he shoved them back, focusing hard on the faces of those he loved, their laughter, their support, their light. Remember, he demanded of himself and those around him. We have fought too hard to lose now. The stone pulsed with renewed energy, illuminating their surroundings as if responding to his plea. Suddenly, the creature's shriek pierced the air, a chilling sound filled with rage and fear. You dare defy me? It twisted, growing in size, darkness expanding like a great maw ready to devour everything in its path. Ethan felt the ground shake beneath him, panic rippling through the crowd. They were losing ground. Stand strong. Clara's voice rang out, a lifebuoy in the tempest. If we believe in each other, we can overcome anything. Her fingers twitched, calling forth the last tendrils of hope within the stone. Ethan stole a glance at the faces of the people. They stared back, wide-eyed, but now embers of determination ignited their expressions. Together, they began to chant louder, their voices rising to meet the shadows head-on. Light shines in darkness. We are the warriors. The stone flared, radiating brilliance that eclipsed the encroaching night. The shadows hissed, their forms distorting in the light as if they were made of smoke. This will not end well. They wailed, their voices splintering the thick air. Ethan felt a surge of courage, lifting the stone higher. Enough! He bellowed, channeling everything into one mighty push. The bright light exploded from the stone, a shockwave of energy that sent ripples through the crowd. People winced, squinting as the light burst forth, a visible promise against the unfurling darkness. Clara's hold on the tendril weakened, but not before she screamed, Ethan now! Together! In a final burst of resolve, Ethan surged forward, the light from the stone intensifying. Let her go! He cried, and with one united force, they thrust their hands out, power streaming like lightning from their fingertips. The shadows shrieked, a deafening sound filling the air as the tendril released Clara, recoiling with agony. No, you cannot do this. I will have you both. With the darkness momentarily disrupted, it pulled back, retreating into itself, but not without rage, its possessive grip fading, yet vowing to return. Ethan grabbed Clara's arm, and she stumbled into him, breathless but free. Relief washed over him, but his heart raced, knowing the fight wasn't over. The whispers in the dark promised a reckoning. What now? She gasped, eyes scanning the chaotic landscape around them. We regroup. We plan. Ethan's voice was firm, but inside uncertainty gnawed once more. The shadows retreated, but they always returned. We can't let our guard down. As the crowd steadied themselves, breathing heavily, a tremor ran through the ground, a warning shot of instability. Ethan looked back at the retreating shadows. This isn't over, he whispered, heart still racing, and just like that, the world seemed to breathe in with him, harboring both the weight of dread and the flicker of hope. A new danger loomed, something darker than before, lurking just out of sight. Would they be prepared for what came next? Or would the shadows plunge them into an abyss deeper than any they had faced before? The darkness began to swirl and collapse upon itself, writhing like a wounded snake. Ethan and the townsfolk stood their ground, hearts pounding together in a chaotic beat of fear and anticipation. They had faced the abyss, but the question remained. Could they face it again? With the shadows twisting at the edges, each resident's breath fogged with uncertainty, they realized that this battle was about much more than light and dark. It was about confronting their own demons. Together! Clara shouted once more, her voice slicing through the thick tension. As she raised her hands, the light flickered back to life in the stone, sending a wave of warmth radiating outwards. The townsfolk rallied behind her, their voices rising like a fierce chorus. We won, to be led by shadows. They echoed. The shadows quaked at their resolve. Every person united in determination had woven an invisible thread of strength. Yet, the dark figure loomed ominously, its ghastly form coiling savagely as if both mocking and testing their will to fight. The air crackled with energy and fear, but as Ethan gazed around him, he felt an electric flicker pass through each person, igniting something deep within, a fierce hope. Thrives on fear. We must expose it, Ethan cried, emboldened by Clara's fire. Whatever lingers out there, we can face it. He gripped the stone tightly and turned, urging every soul around him to take a step forward as one, a single entity of light birthed from their shared pain and hoped. As the chanting crescendoed, the shadows lunged once more, fierce tendrils darting toward them. "You will never escape your past," the looming figure bellowed, aiming to pierce the defenses they had built. The crowd tightened their formation, pressing closer together, hearts thundering in harmony, refusing to succumb to despair. "Do not listen," Clara shouted, her voice a beacon cutting through the dark. The shadows drew nearer, and the air felt heavy enough to choke on their doubts. Panic flickered in the eyes around Ethan, but he drew upon their collective spirit. "This is not where our story ends." In that moment something shifted. As they pressed forward, voices intertwined like the roots of the old oak tree, entwined but distinct. The shadows shrieked, contorting into grotesque shapes that flickered in and out of sight. But with every chant that echoed through Millhaven, the brightness swelled, igniting the town square like the dawn. "Face the truth," Clara called, channeling her budding energy into the stone, the light now a torrent of radiant color. The shadows recoiled in confusion, the glimmering illumination casting away their hold. "You are not welcome here." Ethan felt every heartbeat resonating through him, the disbelief of their power against the dark trickling away like water. No longer were they just fleeing from the shadows, they were the waves lapping back. He raised the stone higher, its light cascading against the gloom, as if the very fabric of reality trembled at their audacity to hope, to resist. And then, the shadows writhed ferociously, their cries sharper now, churning with panic. "You think you can defy me? I have fed on your fears. I will consume you all." The dark figure surged forward, forging a path through the luminous barrier. Ethan's heart raced anew, an urgency burning through him. He could feel Clara pushing beside him, her spirit unfurling like flames against a storm. "Together," he roared, embodying every ounce of unity they had forged. "We face you together." With a final surge of might, Ethan and the others bellowed, "We are more than you ever believed." As the collective strength surged, a wave of light shot forth, enveloping the town square. The shadows screamed, twisting violently, until with a final anguished cry, they shattered into 1,000 fragments, dissolving into the night air. The darkness pulled back, retreating with a furious promise that it would return. But for now they had triumphed. The light they had birthed held fast, illuminating the remnants of a town once gripped by fear. As it flickered away, glimmers of starlight filled the void left behind, painting the night sky in hues of hope. "We did it," Clara gasped, breathless, adrenaline rushing through her veins. Around them the townsfolk erupted into cheers, laughter mingling with exhaled relief. The burdens of their souls lightened. But Ethan felt a heavy weight settle in the pit of his stomach. This wasn't over. A darkness still lingered in their hearts, shadows of regret, fear, and sorrow waiting to be faced, no longer lurking in the night but residing within. The price they paid to stand against it was steep. They wouldn't forget. As the cheers echoed, Ethan turned from his friends to look down the path that led into the woods, a path holding only whispered secrets. "If it comes back, we'll be ready," he vowed silently. "Together." And with that resolve, the townsfolk of Millhaven stood united, hands clasped tightly. In the distance, the darkness remained, but they had found their light unbreakable, undeniable, a fire amidst the shadows. Now it was time to live the life they'd almost lost. Hey, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and reach more amazing fans like you. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. Also, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic conclusion. Your support makes all the difference in bringing stories just like this to life.